A very good morning. You're right here on News 9 Live, and all the top stories from the world of business, economy and growth coming your way in the next 30 minutes. I'm Karthik Malhotra and you're watching World Business Report. Our top story coming in from China this morning. China aims for approximately 5% GDP growth this year, prioritizing a shift in development model. Chinese Premier Li Qiang announced the target at the National People's Congress, emphasizing the need for reforms to address structural imbalances and risks. The growth target remains unchanged from last year but will require significant government stimulus amid ongoing challenges including mounting municipal debt and a sluggish post-COVID recovery. China set to a deficit to GDP ratio of 3% for the year, down from a rare upward revision to 3.8% late last year from the original 3%. An IMF report earlier this year said its conversations with Chinese officials indicated they viewed last year's fiscal policy as proactive. From China, let's move all the way to Europe and the European antitrust, which has fined Apple 1.84 billion euros for abusing its dominant position on the market for the distribution of music streaming apps. Apple was hit with a $2 billion EU fine on March 4th, its first antitrust penalty. It was for preventing Spotify and other music streaming services from informing users of payment options outside its app store. More details in this report.
Today, the Commission has fined Apple 1.84 billion euros for abusing its dominant position on the market for the distribution of music streaming apps.
Apple was hit with a $2 billion EU fine on Monday, its first antitrust penalty. It was for preventing Spotify and other music streaming services from informing users of payment options outside its app store. The European Commission's decision was triggered by a 2019 complaint by Sweden's Spotify over both this restriction and Apple's 30% app store fees. The EU regulator said Apple's restrictions constituted unfair trading conditions, a relatively novel argument in an antitrust case. It comprised a basic element of 40 million euros, described by European Competition Commissioner Margrethe Vestager as a parking ticket for the US giant, plus an additional lump sum of 1.8 billion euros as a deterrent. The antitrust chief said this was the first time the Commission had added a deterrent separate lump sum on top of an antitrust fine.
For a decade, Apple has restricted music streaming app developers from informing their consumers about cheaper options available outside of the app. Apple has done so by contractually imposing anti-steering rules on music streaming app developers.
Vestager ordered Apple to remove these anti-steering provisions and to refrain from similar practices in the future. Apple criticised the EU decision, saying in a statement the decision was reached despite the Commission's failure to uncover any credible evidence of consumer harm and ignores the realities of a market that is thriving, competitive and growing fast. It also said it would challenge the decision in court. A ruling at the Luxembourg-based General Court, Europe's second highest, is likely to take several years. Until then, Apple will have to pay the fine and comply with the EU order.
Well, this news from Apple coming on the back of Indian app developers and startups fighting their own battle on monopolistic pricing by Google Play Store here in India. But staying with the world of big tech, artificial intelligence chipmaker Nvidia has now secured its position as the world's third most valuable public company, surpassing Saudi Aramco in market value. Nvidia's market cap reached $2.11 trillion on March 4th, propelled by a 2.5% surge following its first time closing above the $2 trillion mark last week. In contrast, Aramco's value slipped to $2.01 trillion. The company dominates the market for graphics chips crucial for powering AI applications, driving its shares up by about 70% this year and adding nearly $883 billion in value. Conversely, Aramco has faced challenges including reduced production due to OPEC Plus cuts and potential share offerings by the Saudi government, leading to a more than 5% decline in its value this year. And moving on to somebody who always makes news, and we're talking about Elon Musk, and this time the Indian-American billionaire Vinod Khosla has criticized Elon Musk and has filed a lawsuit against Elon Musk's lawsuit against OpenAI, labeling it as sour grapes due to Musk's late entry into the artificial intelligence arena. Khosla, the first venture capitalist to invest in OpenAI, has suggested that Musk's move stems from missed opportunities and changing priorities. Musk, who was once the largest donor to OpenAI, is now suing the organization and its CEO Sam Altman, alleging a shift towards profit-making over altruistic aims. Khosla's remarks sparked a response from Musk, dismissing his comments. The legal battle underscores tensions in the AI community over ethics, profit motives, and strategic direction. And well, staying with Elon Musk, we told you he never wants to go off news. Former top Twitter executives, including former CEO Parag Agrawal, has sued Elon Musk for over $128 million in severance. This according to media reports. Other plaintiffs include Ned Segal, former CFO, Vijaya Gada, former chief legal officer, and Sean Edgett, former general counsel. The executives who led Twitter during a turbulent takeover process involving Musk allege wrongful termination, denying claims of gross negligence and willful misconduct. X, formerly called Twitter, has yet to comment on the matter. And now moving to Elon Musk's Tesla's biggest competitor in China. We are talking about Chinese electric vehicle manufacturer BYD, which has unveiled a new version of its popular car at a lower price point amidst an ongoing price war in the world's largest automobile market. BYD launches the new Yuan Plus crossover priced at $16,644, nearly 12% lower than its predecessor. This pricing strategy from BYD follows Tesla's recent move to offer new incentives, including insurance subsidies, to attract consumers. Take a look.
Chinese electric vehicle maker BYD on Monday launched a new version of its best-selling car at a lower price than the final price of its predecessor. That's as a protracted price war rages in the world's largest automobile market. The country's leading EV maker announced the domestic cost of a new Yuan Plus crossover, known as the Atto 3 in overseas markets, is $16,644, which Reuters calculations showed is almost 12% lower than the final sales price of the version it has replaced. Data showed BYD sold 412,202 Yuan Plus EVs in 2023, with over 100,000 of them exported. The automaker has been counting on overseas markets for higher profit margins, and the Atto 3 is sold with a starting price of $31,336 in Australia, 85% higher than in China. BYD's lower launch price followed a move from US champion Tesla on Friday. It announced new incentives, including insurance subsidies, to woo customers. This included a maximum of around $4,800 worth of advantages for customers who pick up existing Model 3 and Y vehicles by the end of March. Tesla, previously the world's top EV maker, was dethroned by BYD in the fourth quarter.
Moving to U.S. elections, former U.S. President Donald Trump secures victory in the North Dakota Republican presidential caucuses, as projected by Edison Research, positioning him favorably for Super Tuesday. Trump comfortably defeated Nikki Haley, his sole remaining rival for the Republican nomination, bolstering his prospects for the party's presidential candidacy. With 15 states and 1 U.S. territory participating in Super Tuesday, Trump is anticipated to further solidify his lead in the primary race. Despite Haley's recent win in the Washington, D.C. primary, Trump's dominance in previous contests leaves her with limited prospects for securing the nomination. Trump's focus remains on a potential rematch with Democrat incumbent Joe Biden in the November general elections. Oil prices rose higher on Monday after OPEC Plus members agreed to extend voluntary oil output cuts to the end of the second quarter, largely in line with market expectations, while Russia pledged to cut production and exports. Here's a detailed report.
The OPEC Plus group of oil producers is holding firm on measures to boost prices. On Sunday, members agreed to extend oil output cuts of 2.2 million barrels per day into the second quarter. That's a bid to support the market amid concerns that flagging global growth could dent demand. In a surprise move, OPEC ally Russia added to its output curbs. Moscow said it would reduce production by almost another 500,000 barrels per day. Oil prices have been in the balance so far in 2024. They've been supported by geopolitical tensions and attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. But concern over economic growth has pushed the other way. Since 2022, OPEC has pledged a series of production cuts in a bid to prop up prices amid rising output from the US and other non-members. By early afternoon Monday in Asia, international and US benchmark crude prices were trading broadly steady. The weekend also saw moves to limit US oil sales to China. Lawmakers unveiled a bill to ban sales to the country from Washington's Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The issue has been a hot topic since President Joe Biden in 2022 sold China crude from the SPR. That was in a bid to tame oil prices that were then soaring in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
All right, let's move to U.S. markets now. U.S. stocks closed slightly lower in a volatile session as investors awaited economic data and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's congressional testimony. Apple shares fell 2.5% following a $2 billion EU antitrust fine. Chip stocks, including Nvidia, surged over 3.5%, driven by optimism surrounding artificial intelligence. More in this Reuters report.
U.S. stocks ended slightly lower Monday after a choppy trading day as investors took a pause ahead of economic data and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's congressional testimony. The Dow dipped 0.25%, the S&P 500 shed more than 0.1%, and the Nasdaq lost 0.4. Shares of Apple dropped 2.5% following a $2 billion EU antitrust fine for preventing Spotify and other music streaming services from informing users of payment options outside its App Store. Chip stocks rallied, including Nvidia, which gained more than 3.5% as investors continue to bet on demand for products powering artificial intelligence.
We still can't stop talking about AI in general.
Joy Yang is head of product management and marketing at Market Vector Indexes.
People are pricing in future AI growth as well as innovation, and they're looking at the enablers of AI, and these are the pick and shovel makers like Nvidia, supermicrocomputers, Palantir, and these are stocks that are all up, 70% year to date, over 200% year to date, or 40% year to date. So those are quite significant price movements.
Supermicrocomputer soared more than 18.5% Monday after the AI server maker was selected to join the S&P 500. The AI rally has powered both the Nasdaq and the S&P to recent record closing highs. The S&P 500 has jumped over 21% with 4 straight months of gains through February. In other company news, shares of Macy's jumped 13.5% after investing firm Ark House Management and Brigade Capital Management raised their offer for the department store chain. And Spirit Airlines plunged more than 10% after JetBlue called off its merger deal with the ultra-low-cost carrier. Shares of JetBlue gained more than 4%. Investors are awaiting comments from Fed Chair Powell, who was due to testify before lawmakers on Wednesday and Thursday, ahead of the release of Friday's key jobs report.
Right, from the markets, let's move to the world of Bitcoins, the world's foremost cryptocurrency in terms of value, and it surged to a two-year peak, crossing the $65,000 threshold. Bitcoin has seen a remarkable 50% increase in value throughout this year, with a significant portion of this occurring in recent weeks. Find out why in this report.
Bitcoin scaled a two-year high on Monday by breaking $65,000. That's as a wave of money carried it close to record levels. It marks Bitcoin's highest value since late 2021, with the record set in November of that year at 1 cent shy of $69,000. The largest cryptocurrency by market value has gained over 50% this year. Most of its rise has come in the last few weeks, when trading volume has surged for US-listed Bitcoin funds. That's after spot Bitcoin exchange-traded funds were approved in the United States earlier this year. Their launch opened the way for a new class of investors to jump in and has reignited an enthusiasm reminiscent of the run-up to record levels in 2021. Smaller rival Ether has also gained on speculation that it too may soon have exchange-traded funds driving inflows. It's up over 50% year-to-date, but as of Monday morning in Europe, hadn't quite hit the two-year highs made last week.
Okay, from Bitcoin, let's move back, in fact, to a story we just touched upon. Macy's, after America's department store chain Macy's rebuffed their prior proposal as too low. The buyout offer for the company has been raised to $6.6 billion now, according to investors, Ark House Management and Brigade Capital Management. Here's a detailed report on how the once thriving department store in the US is coping following a series of challenges. Take a look.
The battle for control of Macy's just stepped up a notch. Investors Ark House and Brigade Capital on Sunday said they had raised their offer for the department store chain. Their bid now values the company at around $6.6 billion. That's a premium of about 33% over its Friday closing price. The offer was raised after a previous bid was rejected as too low. Macy's said its board would now review the new numbers. Like other legacy retailers, it has struggled to compete against younger online rivals. That has seen its share price sag and opened the door to a takeover bid. Last month, the firm forecast annual sales and profit would come in below expectations. It said it would shut around 150 stores in a bid to cut costs and revive profits. In a statement, Ark House said its bid would offer shareholders significant value and immediate liquidity. However, some analysts have questioned whether it and Brigade really have the financial muscle to pull off the deal.
Well, from one battle of control to another, we're talking about the proposed $3.8 billion merger between low-cost carriers JetBlue Airways and Spirit Airlines, and this has now actually been cancelled. This decision came after a US judge blocked the deal in January due to anti-competition concerns, leaving both airlines without a viable path forward for the merger agreement. Take a look.
The proposed merger between JetBlue and Spirit Airlines has been permanently grounded. The low-cost carriers on Monday scrapped the $3.8 billion deal, seeing no path forward after a U.S. judge blocked the merger 2 months ago. The judge said it would harm consumers by reducing competition. JetBlue's decision to cancel its deal to merge with Spirit was welcomed by U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, who said it was, quote, yet another victory for the Justice Department's work on behalf of American consumers. The Biden administration has taken a hard line against airline mergers and argued the deal would drive up ticket prices. JetBlue CEO Joanna Garrity, in an internal note seen by Reuters, told employees that pushback from the DOJ and the federal court ruling made the probability of moving forward, quote, extremely low. And Spirit CEO Ted Christie, in a statement, said that regulatory obstacles will not permit us to close this transaction in a timely fashion. The deal would have created the fifth largest U.S. carrier and helped Spirit Airlines ensure its survival. The ultra-low-cost carrier has grappled with weak demand in its key markets as it seeks to return to sustainable profitability. Some analysts have even suggested the company could face bankruptcy if it can't shore up finances. Shares of Spirit were down more than 15% in Monday afternoon trading, while JetBlue shares rose more than 1.5%.
All right, and staying with the world of aviation, a decade after the mysterious disappearance of Malaysian Airlines flight MH370, Malaysia is now considering a fresh search for the missing aircraft. The Transport Minister's announcement coincided with a Remembrance Day where almost 500 relatives and supporters gathered near Kuala Lumpur. This report tells you more about the tragic incident that unfolded in March 2014.
This week will mark a decade since Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 disappeared. Family members of missing passengers were hopeful on Sunday that a new search for the plane may finally shed light on one of the world's greatest aviation mysteries. Malaysia's Transport Minister Anthony Loke says his government is pushing for a new attempt to find the Boeing 777, which disappeared with 227 passengers and 12 crew on board while traveling from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing in 2014.
As I've mentioned numerous times, as far as Malaysian government is concerned, we are committed to that search, and the search must go on.
At a remembrance event in the city of Subang Jaya, Loke said Malaysia had invited the US seabed exploration company called Ocean Infinity to discuss a new search proposal after two previous attempts to find the plane failed. A two-year, $130 million underwater search by Malaysia, China and Australia came to an end in January 2017. The following year, Malaysia had engaged Ocean Infinity for a search in the southern Indian Ocean, offering up to $70 million if the plane was found. Over the years, debris, some confirmed and some believed to be from the aircraft, have washed up on the shores of Africa and islands across the Indian Ocean, some of which were on display at Sunday's remembrance. VPR Nathan, whose wife was on board, is hopeful the latest proposal will uncover something new.
There have been ships lost that are found after hundreds of years. So we cannot say that this plane will never be found. There are actually plans underway now to map the whole of the world's oceans. So when they map the ocean floor, at some point in time they will find. But whether it's in my lifetime, we cannot say.
Officials say once Malaysia's cabinet approves Ocean Infinity's proposal, it will talk to Australia about working together to resume the search.
Okay, moving on. In a historic move, French lawmakers voted to include the right to abortion into the constitution on Monday, following which celebratory scenes across the country were witnessed as women's rights activists hailed the measure. The move makes France the first country in the world to offer explicit protection for terminating a pregnancy in its basic law. Take a look.
780.
Abortion rights activists broke into cheers near the Eiffel Tower on Monday, as France enshrined the right to abortion in its constitution in a world first.
Pour l'adoption, 780.
In a special joint vote of the two houses of parliament at the Versailles Palace, MPs and senators overwhelmingly backed the initiative. The final tally, 780 votes against 72. Article 34 in the French Constitution will now read that the law determines the conditions in which a woman has the guaranteed freedom to have recourse to an abortion.
Nous célébrons une victoire historique.
Mathilde Panot, a lawmaker from a far-left party, called the victory historic.
Notre vote est une promesse aussi.
Our vote is also a promise to all women around the world who are fighting for the right to have control over their bodies. Today's vote tells them that their fight is ours and that this victory is theirs.
Cette victoire est la vôtre.
Abortion rights are more widely accepted in France than in the US and many other countries. Polls show around 80% of French people support the fact that abortion is legal, which it has been since a law passed in 1974. It was harshly criticized at the time. But in the wake of the U.S. Supreme Court's 2022 decision to reverse the Roe v. Wade ruling,
that recognized women's constitutional right to abortion, activists pushed France to become the first country to explicitly protect the right in its basic law. Still, the push has not come without criticism. Far-right leader Marine Le Pen said French President Emmanuel Macron was trying to score political points, adding that it's an exaggeration to call it a historic step when the right to abortion was not at risk in France. In reality, the day after this Congress, nothing will have changed for women, said Hélène Laporte, a lawmaker from Le Pen's party.
En fait, on a importé un débat qui n'est pas français.
The president of the Association of Catholic Families called the change an imported debate that is not French, and said that there was no need to add the right to abortion to the Constitution.
All right, let's pivot now to the world of culture. Fashion designer Stella McCartney drew her audience to a giant greenhouse in a Paris park for her winter runway collection. Against the backdrop of melting icebergs displayed on screens, Hollywood actor Olivia Colman's voice echoed through the soundtrack, symbolizing Mother Earth's presence in the immersive experience. Take a look.
You know, I was thinking, what would Mother Earth say to all of her inhabitants, the animals and all of the humans and all of nature, if she wrote us a letter? And so she wrote me a letter, and I thought that was very nice of her. And so we had Olivia Colman, who is epic icon, reading out her words and her empathy and love, but her urgency too, you know. So I wanted to really have a chat about how we in fashion, and certainly at Stella, you know, we're providing solutions for an issue that we all share, and at the same time it should not be sacrificing any style, and it should be fabulous and fashionable and fun.
All right, from the world of fashion to the world of entertainment, singer-songwriter Raye was the big winner at the BRIT Awards, the biggest night in British music, setting a new record for most prizes in one night at the annual ceremony. Raye took home 6 awards, including Artist of the Year with her album My 21st Century Blues and smash hit Escapism, also winning top honors. Take a look.
21st Century Blues. Go.
Just truly an incredible evening.
It's Raye!
What an unforgettable night.
And I don't want to feel how my heart is ripping. In fact, I don't want to feel, so I stick to sipping. And I'm out on a town with a simple mission.
You just don't understand what this means to me. Ugly crying on national television. I'm so proud of this album. I'm so proud of this album. I'm in love with music. All I ever wanted to be was an artist. And now I'm an artist with an album of the year!
Well, that's all we've had for you on this episode of World Business Report, but news and updates continue right here on Newsline Live. Up next is Business Plus starting at 11 a.m. So come back for more on Newsline Live. Thanks for watching.